What if everything you thought you knew about one of the most powerful nations in the Middle East was only half the story? What if behind the military strength, the technology, the headlines, there was a deeper truth that no one dares to talk about? Today, we're not here to judge. We're here to listen, to feel, to open our eyes to the quiet exodus happening right now. An exodus not of war, but of will. Why are so many Israelis walking away from their own homeland? What's pushing them to trade tradition for freedom, roots for reinvention, certainty for the unknown? The answers might shake you. They might even challenge you, but one thing is certain. Once you hear the truth, you won't see this story the same way again. So lean in. Don't blink. Don't scroll. This isn't just a speech. It's a revelation. And by the end, you'll understand why so many are saying, enough is enough. The truth will shock you. The emotion will move you. And the message just might stay with you forever. The rising cost of living in Israel has become a dominant force pushing many citizens to reconsider their future in the country. Over the past decade, prices for essential needs such as housing, groceries, education, and healthcare have steadily climbed, while wages have failed to keep pace. For the average Israeli family, especially in urban areas like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, the dream of owning a home has become increasingly distant. Renting, too, has become a financial burden, with landlords raising prices beyond what middle class or young professionals can afford. This economic squeeze is not limited to housing alone. Utility bills, childcare, and even basic food items are significantly more expensive compared to other developed nations. One of the biggest frustrations among citizens is the disproportionate nature of income versus expenses. Despite high levels of education and a strong work ethic, many Israelis find themselves barely breaking even at the end of each month. This constant financial stress creates a sense of exhaustion and burnout, particularly for young families trying to provide stability for their children. While Israel has a thriving tech industry and strong innovation sector, the benefits of this growth have not trickled down evenly. The economic gap between the wealthy and the struggling is widening, creating a growing sense of inequality and resentment. Moreover, government attempts to address these issues have often been seen as too little or poorly executed. Promises of affordable housing initiatives and price controls are frequently met with skepticism due to a lack of long-term planning or political will. Citizens feel unheard and unsupported, watching as prices rise while their quality of life diminishes. Many are forced to take multiple jobs or rely on family assistance just to make ends meet, leaving little room for personal growth, savings, or security. As a result, immigration becomes not just a desire, but a practical solution. Countries with more affordable living conditions, better social safety nets, and greater economic mobility begin to look increasingly appealing. For many, the decision to leave is not born from disloyalty, but from the reality that their home no longer offers a viable path toward the life they envision for themselves or their children. The frustration isn't just economic. It's emotional, cultural, and existential, forming the foundation for an exodus that continues to grow in silence. Political instability in Israel has become a powerful driving force behind the growing number of citizens choosing to leave the country. Over the past few years, Israel has experienced a series of repeated elections, coalition collapses, and leadership changes, which have created an atmosphere of deep uncertainty. Many Israelis have lost faith in the ability of their leaders to bring about stability, govern effectively, or prioritize the needs of the people over political gamesmanship. Some remain despaired, and many others feel pressurized by despair toward the games rather than the games itself. Many Israelis have lost faith in the people over political gamesmanship. This sense of disillusionment is especially strong among younger generations, who once believed in reform, transparency, and progress, but now feel alienated by a system that seems endlessly stuck in gridlock. Beyond the cycle of elections, controversial judicial reforms and laws have sparked massive nationwide protests and widen societal divisions. A large portion of the population views these moves as threats to democracy, fearing the erosion of judicial independence and the concentration of power in the hands of a few. These tensions have sparked a national identity crisis, with people questioning what kind of country Israel is becoming and whether it still represents the values they hold dear. Many see the government's direction as increasingly authoritarian and feel powerless to influence change through the democratic process. Corruption scandals involving high-profile politicians have further deepened public frustration. When leaders are accused of wrongdoing and investigations seem to drag on without clear accountability, the public loses confidence in the integrity of the political system. This erosion of trust makes citizens feel disconnected from their government, as though their voices and votes no longer matter. People are tired of empty promises and policies that serve narrow political interests rather than the common good. For many Israelis, politics now feels like a battleground where loyalty to party matters more than loyalty to people. As right-wing and left-wing ideologies clash with increasing hostility, the middle ground, the space for compromise, dialogue, and unity, continues to shrink. This hostile climate leaves individuals feeling more divided than ever, not just politically, but socially and culturally. The dream of a unified, democratic Israel seems further out of reach with each passing day. Faced with this environment, many choose to seek stability elsewhere. They leave not because they don't care, but because they've grown tired of fighting battles they believe they can't win. They want to live in countries where political systems, despite their flaws, feel less volatile and more responsive to the needs of ordinary people. The burden of mandatory military service and the constant state of security tension in Israel play a significant role in the growing wave of immigration. From a young age, Israeli citizens know that they will be expected to serve in the army, 3 years for men and around 2 years for women. While military service is often seen as a rite of passage and a duty toward the nation, it also places an immense psychological, emotional, and physical burden on young people. Many enter adulthood not through education or exploration, but through combat training, intense discipline, and exposure to real conflict. This early exposure to military life often delays personal development, academic pursuits, and career growth, leaving many feeling like they've lost precious years that others around the world are free to use differently. Beyond the service itself, Israel's security situation remains constantly volatile. The threat of rocket attacks, terror incidents, and conflict with neighboring territories creates an ongoing state of alertness. Citizens live with the reality of sirens, bomb shelters, and unpredictable escalations in violence. This environment of hypervigilance takes a toll over time. It affects mental health, family life, and the ability to plan for the future. Parents fear for their children's safety, not just when they're serving in the army, but even during ordinary school days or commutes. The emotional cost of this constant insecurity often leads families to seek safer and more predictable environments abroad. There is also a cultural dimension to this burden. While some view military service as honorable and unifying, others see it as a forced sacrifice that doesn't always align with their personal beliefs or aspirations. Not everyone supports the military policies or the use of force, yet all are expected to serve without question. This creates a sense of inner conflict, particularly among young, educated individuals who feel trapped in a system that demands compliance over conscience. Even those who serve with pride often come out of the army carrying trauma, injuries, or emotional scars that linger for years. Now, the military's presence extends far beyond the base. It influences education, employment, and social status. Employers often evaluate candidates based on their military service, and national identity is closely tied to military participation. For those who want a different path, who dream of peace, creativity, or freedom, this can feel suffocating. They look to countries where life isn't defined by defense, where security doesn't come with such a high personal cost, and where they can simply live without fear or uniform. The growing religious-secular divide in Israel has become a major source of tension that is influencing many citizens to consider immigration. Israeli society is becoming increasingly polarized between those who advocate for a secular modern way of life and those who follow strict religious traditions, particularly within the ultra-Orthodox Haredi community. This divide is no longer just a cultural issue. It's affecting policy, education, public services, and daily life. Secular Israelis often feel that their freedoms are being restricted by the rising influence of religious parties in the government, which are pushing for laws that align with their interpretation of Jewish law rather than democratic or pluralistic principles. One of the most contentious areas is education. Many ultra-Orthodox schools do not teach core subjects like math, science, or English, and yet receive significant public funding. This has sparked outrage among secular Israelis who feel the state is enabling a system that does not prepare students for the modern workforce. They see it as unfair, especially when they are taxed heavily to support institutions that do not reflect their values or contribute to the national economy in equal measure. These issues create resentment and a sense of imbalance in responsibility and rights between different segments of the population. Public transportation, business hours, and even recreational activities are often limited or regulated due to religious considerations, particularly on the Sabbath and religious holidays. For secular citizens, these restrictions feel like an imposition on their personal freedoms. They argue that religion should be a personal matter, not something that dictates how everyone lives their lives. These frustrations extend to issues such as marriage, conversion, and burial, which are controlled by religious authorities and often exclude non-Orthodox or non-Jewish citizens from full recognition and rights. Furthermore, the increasing political power of religious parties has led to a growing fear among secular Israelis that their voices are being drowned out in favor of a more conservative and rigid national identity. As these religious factions become kingmakers in coalition governments, secular citizens feel sidelined in their own democracy. Many feel that their efforts to build a liberal, inclusive, and forward-thinking society are being undermined by those who wish to preserve a stricter religious order. This has led to a growing sense of alienation, especially among young professionals who desire a lifestyle where they can live freely, love freely, and express themselves without fear of judgment or institutional limitations. One of the major reasons many Israelis are choosing to leave their country is the appeal of greater personal freedom, career opportunity, and improved quality of life abroad. In a globalized world where people can easily compare their circumstances to those in other developed nations, the differences become too stark to ignore. Many countries, particularly in North America and Western Europe, offer an environment that feels more stable, more progressive, and more open to individual growth. For Israelis dealing with economic strain, political chaos, or cultural tensions at home, these places represent a chance at a different kind of life, one with less daily stress, fewer systemic obstacles, and more room for personal exploration. In terms of career opportunity, many Israeli professionals, especially in tech, medicine, and academia, find they can earn more, work fewer hours, and receive better benefits abroad. Countries like the United States, Canada, Germany, and Australia not only offer competitive salaries, but also strong support systems such as public health care, subsidized education, and social services that provide a real sense of security. In contrast, many Israelis feel that despite their hard work and high-level education, they are stuck in a system that demands more and gives less in return. Long work hours, high taxes, and limited career mobility outside of specific sectors lead to burnout and a search for better options elsewhere. Another factor is the desire for personal freedom, especially among younger Israelis. Abroad, they find greater freedom of expression, less societal pressure to conform, and more inclusive environments where diverse lifestyles, ideologies, and identities are respected and protected. In Israel, the social fabric is often shaped by intense debates over religion, politics, and tradition, which can create a sense of restriction. For individuals who don't fit neatly into those frameworks or who wish to live outside of them, leaving becomes a way to reclaim autonomy over their lives. The quality of life is another undeniable draw. Many foreign cities offer cleaner environments, better public transportation, safer neighborhoods, and more affordable living conditions. People are attracted to a pace of life that feels less combative, more relaxed, and more focused on well-being. The ability to enjoy weekends without political protests or security threats, the chance to travel freely, and the comfort of knowing that basic needs are more easily met are all powerful motivators. In the end, for many Israelis, the decision to immigrate is not driven by rejection of their homeland, but by the pull of a life that offers more balance, opportunity, and peace. Leaving Keystone, rising sense of identity crisis among young Israelis have played a growing role in the country's immigration trend. In a world more connected than ever, people are no longer limited by geography and how they see themselves, live, or plan their futures. With the internet, social media, and exposure to global cultures, young Israelis are increasingly seeing themselves as part of a broader global community rather than solely as citizens of a nation deeply defined by conflict, tradition, and political division. This shift in perspective makes it harder for many to reconcile their global values with the realities of life in Israel, where identity is often tightly bound to religion, nationality, and service to the state. Many young people feel conflicted between the traditional expectations placed on them, such as military service, adherence to cultural norms, and alignment with national narratives, and the more fluid and inclusive identities they see embraced elsewhere. They want the freedom to define themselves by their passions, professions, relationships, or beliefs, rather than by the obligations of being Israeli in a highly polarized society. For some, the weight of always having to choose sides, to defend a political stance, or to live within narrowly defined roles becomes emotionally draining. They yearn for a society where identity is celebrated in its complexity, not confined to rigid boundaries. But this crisis of identity is intensified by the fact that Israel is often seen by its citizens as being in a constant state of existential debate about who belongs, what kind of democracy it wants to be, and how to reconcile its Jewish identity with democratic ideals. For globally minded Israelis who grew up with multicultural influences and who embrace values of tolerance, individualism, and freedom, the internal tension becomes too great. They start questioning whether they can fully be themselves within Israel's current social and political climate. As a result, more young Israelis are looking outward, drawn to places that allow them to explore who they are without conflict, without pressure, and without fear of being marginalized. They want to contribute to a world that feels open and evolving, rather than one that often feels defensive and divided. Leaving becomes less about escaping and more about becoming, about finding a home where personal truth, growth, and freedom are not just possible, but encouraged. The global mindset offers possibilities that transcend borders, and for many, that promise is worth chasing. What we're witnessing isn't just migration, it's a message from the heart of a people who have loved their land, served it, sacrificed for it, but are now asking one simple question: at what cost? Israelis aren't leaving because they've stopped caring. They're leaving because they care enough to want something better for themselves, for their children, for their peace of mind. Economic strain, political chaos, societal divides, and emotional exhaustion are not just issues. They're warnings. And if these voices aren't heard, the future will not